that you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, this is
The
going to be
galactic poster out there.
This is going to be an out of this world show, folks. Okay, I had to dig up some numbers. A lot of people were saying, "Hey, where did this jive with some of the other findings you have found on this before?" And we have, in fact, asked about this before. Turns out, almost 3 years ago to the day. We're also going to get into Joe Biden's approval rating, which I thought was appropriate, and his approval on the issues. So his overall approval rating, I will say off the jump, is at a new high for us, which is driven it's driven by COVID and the vaccinations. And how do we know? Because that is the only issue in which he gets high marks, other than his overall. So he's just sitting just a little bit over 54%, which will be up shortly. I was hoping to get all of this up before, but I'll go over this with you and I'll read this to you while we do. One is up but not the other. So let's start with Joe Biden's approval rating, and then we'll get into Americans' views on extraterrestrial life. And I know it's kind of funny, but it is important because there's definitely a shift here. There's a shift in opinion on this topic, which is interesting. If you go and look on Big Data Poll right now, the press release we just put out, it's shocking how consistent it is across all groups, across even regions, genders, races, ages. It's very consistent, that's a dichotomy shift. All right, because years and years ago, there would be some people who had, which clearly you can see were more likely to believe than not. Are there some differences? Yes. All right. So, ironically, the white educated liberal is least likely to believe in extraterrestrial life, while they differ from just about every other group of Americans. But let's get in real quick to Joe Biden's approval rating. overall sitting just under, like I said, 54%. It's about 53.5. All right. And where is that coming from? Where is that coming from? It's coming from a chunk of undecideds, but also a lot of somewhat approves. All right, so that tells a pollster like me, when you have like almost 3 in 10 voters saying that they somewhat approve of you, that tells me that that is a soft approval. All right, there's not a strong intensity there. And when you have slightly more about he's slightly negative on the intensity index, which means there are more people who are completely against him and disapprove than there are those who are completely for Joe Biden. Which really shouldn't shock anybody. If you're a watcher of the show, if you were a follower of our polling going into the election, none of this should shock you. Because really, the truth is, nobody really wanted to vote for Joe Biden. He didn't have this, massive following. And we all know my opinions on that. And I'm not going to rehash it. But only about 3 in 10 Hispanics strongly approve of the job he is doing. About a quarter of whites do. He doesn't even get to a majority of strong approval with Black and African American support. About 34% of Asians strongly approve of him. Only 23% of American Indian, Alaskan Native, and less than 10% of Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. When you talk about other Asian groups, he's about 16.8% strongly approve. So he has a very, very soft approval rating. There's not much to say on that. All right. Other than he's in the high 50s, depending on vaccinations, COVID response in general. He's in the high 50s to nearly 60 on just the issue of COVID and the vaccines. Mm-hmm. That's it. Look at everywhere else. On immigration, he's negative 11. With the the highest number saying they strongly disapprove. Just about 4 in 10 voters strongly disapprove of the job that Joe Biden is doing on immigration and at the border. We said immigration and border security. That is how we asked it. More specifically, do you approve or disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on each of the following issues? And then this was, I believe, listed as the first one, right? Correct? Yes.
I think so.
After his general approval rating. Mm-hmm. All right. Only 15% of American voters strongly approve of the job that Joe Biden is doing on immigration and border security. Another quarter said they somewhat approve. So I got to say, though, we have seen some other polling, including big media polling, and they have Joe Biden in the 30s on this. I wouldn't be shocked that we are a little bit high, even on the issue of COVID. I think this may be a little bit too pro-Biden, this poll, to be frank. I mean, I'm being honest. I think it may be a little bit too favorable to Joe Biden, which would mean his approval rating may be overall a little bit high. I don't know, but I stand by what we did and put it out. He's got lots of money being injected into the economy, vaccines being rolled out. This could be as good as it gets for Joe Biden. When you have soft approval like this, and he's basically a one-issue guy at the moment, right? I mean, he is a one-issue guy. Even on the economy, with all this money going out, the country's split. This is not good. Mm-mm. When you have what for couples with kids, $7,000. When you have that kind of money being injected, Social Security just got their rollout. Then why are people not singing his praises on the economy? All right. U.S.-China relations. He is underwater looks like about 3 points. All right. 31% strongly disapprove of the job he is doing with China, handling China. U.S.-China relations is how we word it. 31% strongly disapprove. About 14% strongly approve. Very ugly intensity indexes on these issues for Joe Biden. They get very ugly. By the way, on the issue of him, that's a negative 31. That's a negative 17 nearly, if you factor in the decimals, right? Which we do. We always do tens. And on the issue,
Rich not do the tens?
How dare I? And on the issue of immigration, folks, we're looking at negative 25 intensity. All right, so that's bad. What about foreign policy? The issue, which the second presidential debate is always on foreign policy, that was canceled. Many people, observers, including myself, said that absolutely was a disadvantage to the sitting incumbent president. Foreign policy debates tend to be where the incumbents shine. Donald Trump had a record to tout that he never did get to tout. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has been in Washington for 4 decades and hasn't really been all that impressive. All right, just to say, Americans are generally split in the low 40s on him. But where's the intensity line? A little over 30% strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on foreign policy, and about 18% strongly approve. So again, another negative 12, right? And where is his approve come from? About a quarter say they somewhat approve. So that's where Joe Biden gets his low to mid 40s. That can collapse very, very quickly. All right, that's weak. It's weak support. All right, so what my gut is telling me is that some of these other issues are carrying Joe Biden right now. What other issues? Coronavirus. Simple. Plain as pure and simple. This is the only issue where his negative intensity does not outweigh his positive intensity. And he has very strong marks here, guys. Very strong. Strongly approve on the coronavirus and vaccine rollout is 37.6%. Strongly disapprove is about 20%. So he's about positive 18 if we round up. That is the strongest number he has by far. And I tend to think, crank the volume a little bit.
Yeah,
people need more volume.
People can't hear. And plus, your voice is strange.
Yeah, my voice is a little bit hoarse today, guys. So apologize for that. But give me a second. I'll pull it up and I'll make it a little bit louder. But yeah, bottom line is, there we go.
I'm sorry to distract you, but
how's this? Just tell me if I go too loud, guys. Tell me if I go too loud. But bottom line is, that's carrying his overall approval, which is not all that much more than his vote share. It's a couple of points higher than his vote share in November. So there is no 60+% approval rating for Joe Biden. I'm sorry. It's not there. As I suspected it would not be. This is now the 4th national poll we've conducted under the Biden administration. He has been as low as 48%, and his previous high was 52%, or 53. And now this is probably going to round up to 54. It's like 53.8 or something. So now this will be a new all-time high for him, for us. All right? No 60%. I'm not even sure he can hit that. Looking at no, I'm serious.
No, I know.
I don't think so.
I don't think
outside
it's
of a
feasible.
transcending figure like Barack Obama, a historic figure, I don't see it. We're too polarized, and his support outside of partisans, after a while, it completely collapses when you look at independence on these other issues. All right, so the minute we move away from the general approval or coronavirus approval, he collapses with everyone outside of his party. In fact, let's go back to immigration for a second. All right. Driving that big approval rating on coronavirus is a 70% approval among Democrats. A strongly approval, I'm sorry. It's actually higher than that because there's another 20 who say they somewhat approve. All right. But if I was to pull up, for the love of God, here we go again. All right. Let's go to immigration. All right. Independents strongly approve on immigration, 8%. That's it. Somewhat approve, 25. How many independents strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on immigration? 40.3. That is not good, especially if this issue comes to the forefront. So can coronavirus stay around forever? And if he's viewed to have handled the pandemic well, will that carry him later and outweigh some of these other negative feelings towards him on other aspects of his job performance? Something else, the something else category, we harped on them those third-party voters, we harped on them. 50% even. 50% even disapprove. Strongly is 35%. Somewhat is 15%. So those voters that he won, against, he took 7 out of every 10, according to some polls and exit polls. I'm sorry. Just think it's a total joke. All right. But let's just play along. All right. They don't approve of the job he is doing right now. So there's a lot of weakness there. The good news for him is that they're only about 5% of the total electorate. All right. On China, immigration on China. Come on, spin around this thing. I've got to figure this out. I think the laser's dirty. That's what I think it is. You know how it has the little laser reader? Dirty. I think it's dirty. I know. Don't you dare. All right, back to China relations. Independents strongly approve of the job he is doing with U.S.-China relations. Less than 8%, 7.8%. Strongly disapprove, 30%. So you're getting the pattern here, right, guys? You're getting the pattern. The pattern is his support is very soft, and if it wasn't for the pandemic,
but that's the only topic.
That's
he
it.
has.
That's it. That's where I'm trying to be nice about this. But he's going so aggressively after guns and all these other. Come on, let's be real with this spending bill. It's not an infrastructure bill. No. It's the Green New Deal. Don was right about that. By the way, we'll have Don on about 12:30. He was right about that. Mm-hmm. And this new gun control, measure they're trying to force through, and the executive orders he's going to put out and has already issued guidance. He doesn't have the public on his side with these other issues. So I do understand their strategy now of moving quickly and, forget about the first 100 days kind of thing, the typical benchmark. Forget about that at this point.
I think it's the first 100 executive orders.
Yeah, I mean, right. He's already working. Almost there. Right, but he's already almost there. But the bottom line is, if you're them and you're thinking to yourself, when is the best time to do this? The time is now. If the coronavirus pandemic, if that becomes less of an issue in the forefront of voters' minds, he has no political capital. So now is the time to crank all this out while you hope, at a time when you can hope that people are so worried about whether they gotten their deuces in their arm, that they're not really thinking about these other issues. That is the smart look. I'm just saying that's the smart play. It is. It's a smart play. I just don't think it's long term. It may not be a wise one. Even if the Republicans, and they are incompetent, they could be very incompetent and yet still wind up having a great midterm because they just overstep. When we look, by the way, we're going to look at some of these, and we did. We looked at some of the all week long. We went through, and we kept hearing the suburbs. Well, you see how the suburbs feel about their positions on these issues. And if they take too hard of a turn, then it could end up bad. As a matter of fact, let's look at area. Okay. Suburban voters on U.S.-China relations strongly disapprove, 32.4. Strongly approve, 13.2. Even his overall approval rating, as a matter of fact, is being driven in large part by urban America, where it is 67% between strongly and somewhat. In the suburbs, there are still, the largest category is strongly disapprove at 32.5, which is above the national average. Of course, rural is pushing that more. So far, though, Joe Biden is not doing that terrible in rural America. And I have to say, it's possible. This is the way polling goes sometimes. Rural America is just more difficult to reach, and you tend to understate Republican sentiment in rural America. Maybe it balances out though with some like this 22+% strongly disapproval in urban America. Maybe it's not that high, kind of thing. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep tracking it, right? But suburban America, again, just like everybody else, biggest category, strongly disapprove. And he floats by on the rest, all right? All right, there's a couple other things because it's already 11:20, and we'll burn. When did you say Don's coming? 12:30, right?
12:30, my love.
Okay, so we have time, right? Mm-hmm. We did some trust in institution stuff. I mean, that's really all that can be said about Joe Biden's approval rating. I think the gist of this is he's above water. Coronavirus is fueling that, but the intensity index is against him on everything but the coronavirus. And he is negative to even on all of these other issues. He's negative on foreign policy. He's negative on U.S.-China relations. He's negative on immigration. If it wasn't for coronavirus and the vaccine, he'd be in a lot of trouble. All right? Right track, wrong track actually narrowed a little bit since the last time, but it was getting back on track before. And we had about a 3-month blip. Where it was 40% right track, 50% wrong track. All right. There's not a whole lot you can say about that. Men and women are just as likely to say the country's headed in the right direction. Men are a little bit more likely than women to say that it's headed in the wrong direction. All right. Hispanics are somewhat split, though they tilt wrong track. Whites are wrong track by like 20 points. All right. Let's see what else is important here. We went over favorabilities earlier in the week. This is our very own first, and if we're going to continue to do this poll, I want to continue to ask this at least a few times a year. We're going to do our own trust in institutions. Rasmussen, and you guys probably saw this, they asked about, I
just think that's funny because yesterday you're talking about institutions, and Ben said I would love for y'all to poll about how folks feel about these woke companies.
Well, we have big tech in here. We asked about big tech. All right, so which is going to be something, let me tell you. Okay, but Rasmussen, we asked about different news medias too, and we'll talk about the national media, the trust they have in the national media, and you guys can see that on your spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is our first one. I would like to see how it tracks over time, which is why I want to continue to do it. Gallup has long had a trust in institutions, but if you look at how they word the question, it's not really, it's more like confidence. Yeah. It's not, we're talking about specifically how much trust. Please tell us how much trust you have in each institution. A great deal, quite a lot, some or very little, not much at all, right? Or not very much at all, right? So church, synagogue, mosque, meaning your personal church, your synagogue or your mosque or other institution of religion, okay? A great deal, 27.2%, a fair amount, 50.5%. So 57.7%, about 58% of American voters have at least a fair amount to a great deal of trust in their religious institutions. 13.3% said not very much, and 9.6% said none at all. Their own personal church. Unsure, no opinion was a combined 20%. Congress. A great deal amount of trust in Congress, 6.6%. That's credible. That's a credible regime.
Making mountains move.
We have one of the most disliked governments in the world. Like, I'm talking about voters and citizens of other countries, how they view their government. This is abysmal. All right, so none at all is about a quarter, and not very much is about 4 and 10. And another roughly quarter say a fair amount. All right, so that's nothing to write home to mom about. The Supreme Court is an institution that typically does get higher marks than other institutions. All right, and this is, by the way, we're going to dovetail back into Joe Biden for a second here, because I think this is where you see some of that social bias and you peel away some of the layers of coronavirus, right? Is he our savior from the pandemic? And when you ask people whether you have faith in him, you get a very different result than approval rating, which is interesting. All right, just hang tight on that a second. Mm-hmm. But about 15% have a great deal of trust in the U.S. Supreme Court. 39% have a fair amount of trust. Almost 3 in 10 have said not very much. And 12% said none at all. Only about 5% said they were unsure or had no opinion. Moving back to Joe Biden and the presidency here. Okay? 20% have a great deal of trust in the president. All right? Or the presidency, I should say. Another 29 have a fair amount. Not very much. A little over, just about a quarter, almost a quarter. And another quarter that have none at all. Almost nearly a 50-50 split. And that is very different from his plus 7, whatever it is, plus 7 approval. Very different. This is interesting, a little higher than I thought. A lot higher, frankly. National public health officials, 24% have a great deal of trust in national public health officials. Another third have a fair amount. About a quarter said not very much. And only 14% said none at all. So after all of the flip-flopping, this is, again, a testament to the power of media and what Robert Barnes and I have said, that people want someone to be able to trust. They want to be able to trust Dr. Fauci when he comes out and flip-flops 800 times.
Sad.
It's a testament to the media's ability to turn a trick and tell a story.
The magicians that they are.
They are. All right, because apparently a lot of Americans don't understand the National Institute of Health and the CDC and the Surgeon General and even the WHO lied to us for months. And they want to believe them. Now, local healthcare providers, they score much higher, okay? 45% have a fair amount. About 30% have a great deal. Only 16% said they had not very much. None at all was just rounded up 6%. So people clearly trust their local healthcare providers more than they trust nationals at about 56%. Right here, we're looking at 75% of Americans, roughly, either have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in their local healthcare providers. That's much higher than the 56, even though 56 was, more than I thought. 56% is not 75%, which actually, when you round up, it's 76.
I like that, though, that they trust their own personal.
They do. Public schools actually scored a little higher than I thought, but it's not great when you look into it. So a great deal only accounts for 16% of that trust. That's it. Another 4 in 10 roughly said a fair amount. That's not a glowing remark, by the way.
Review.
Not very much was a quarter. And another 13% said they had no trust in them at all. All right, college, universities, and institutions of higher learning. Roughly the same result. All right, 16% a great deal, about 4 in 10 a fair amount. Not very much was about 22%, and another 16% that have no trust at all. Now we get to national media, and not coordinated at all. We design our surveys completely separately, but we do say, hey, have you polled something like this recently? What did you find? And I was talking with the peeps over at Rasmussen, and we had very, very similar results on our trust in institutions for the national media that they had in trust in the media for political reporting. Very interesting. Ours was a little bit higher, but maybe that's because, and I mean 3 points, not much, when you combine our two. Our choices were a little different. They said, how much do you trust them, yes or no? And we asked on this scale. But you can combine the two that indicate trust, which would be a yes, and you can combine the two that indicate distrust, which would be a no, to see where you generally end up. Had I said the national political media, it probably would have been lower. But that would account for the little bit of disparity that we have between each other. But overall, very similar results. 10% of the country have a great 10% of American voters have a great deal of trust in the national media. Another 26.8% have a fair amount. But almost an identical 25.6% say not very much, and more than a third say none at all. So when you combined it, about 36.8% indicated they have, some trust at least, when almost 60% indicated they had none. I mean, right? 58.9 had, not very much or none at all. And that skews towards none at all.
And that 0.9 was necessary, right?
It is necessary. You know me. Local media gets high marks. Online media does not. And that is interesting to me because I think a lot of people get their news now, which is something I want to add. The next survey, there are two things I want to add that didn't make the cut, although we kicked it around. But I want to add it because we don't need to ask a lot of other questions that we asked this time again. Guns, I want several questions on the Second Amendment. And then I also want, where do you get your news from? That is a question we've asked in the past. I love it. And I want to get a benchmark for 2021 for it. So the next public polling project that gets funded, those two are definitely going in there. All right, so local media, a great deal of trust, about 12%, a fair amount, about 40%. So they do much better than the national media. There's a majority in this country who at least has a fair amount of trust. They indicate they trust their local media. None at all is 16% roughly, and not very much is 28%. So again, not great remarks, but certainly better than the national media. All right, online media, 8%. So looking like the corporate media, have a great deal. But another quarter or so have a fair amount. So it looks very close to the national media. Not very much is about a third. None at all is about is under a quarter, over 2 and 10.
So they're neck and neck.
Yeah, they're alternative media. It's like when you hear online media,
it's like it's hard to.
I wonder if we should have said
without skewing.
Online news source. Yeah, I feel like we could have presented them better. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to let's mull it.
It's
over
like once we start, yeah, we will mull it over. But once I start asking something a certain way, I hate to tweak.
Yeah, because now
it's not apples to apples.
It's not accurate translation.
Or it can be if you do it right, but you're really exposing yourself there. All right, trust in institution, the U.S. military, among the highest. Are you ready? A great deal, 33.6. A fair amount, 39.4. Not very much, 15.6. None at all, 6.8. Look, I'm a veteran, and while I'm happy to see people trust, their servicemen and women, I'm not sure it's wise to trust the military that much.
Yeah.
But hey, Americans are going to do what they're going to do, and I'm just going to poll it. But I'm just simply saying with myself,
well, our forefathers
right. I separate servicemen and women, though, from the brass, Laura.
Yeah.
I do.
No,
I really do. They're totally different.
Polar opposites.
Yep. All right. Well, this is a good one. We have the trial of Derek Chauvin underway in the case of whether it's murder or manslaughter and the death of George Floyd. How do Americans feel about local police departments? All right. Mm-hmm. A great deal of trust, 27.7%. A fair amount, 42.1%. So overall, folks, 69.2% of the country trust their local police. Those are very high marks. Not very much is 17.8. None at all is 8.7. So it's difficult to attack cops when you see numbers like this. Very, very difficult. Americans, or I should say, local law enforcement, they have the trust of their police forces. You know what? Let me back up a second. I think it's important to go into regional. Okay? Both area and regional. Let's look at region first. In the Northeast, 27.2% have a great deal. 43.5% have a fair amount. So roughly the national average on a great deal. A little bit higher. In the Northeast is liberal, folks. It's liberal. In the South, higher than the national average, a great deal. 30.4%. Just about the national average on a fair amount. 41%. The Midwest, higher than the national average. 28.5%. We're talking about the Midwest when we're talking about the case of Derek Chauvin. And 40.6%. A fair amount. So again, 69.1% in the Midwest. Those are high marks. In the West, 21.9%, below the national average. But a fair amount is above at 45%. Again, though, 66.9% it's below the national average, but it's still a fair. It's not a bad number. And it's nothing to cry about. It really isn't. All right, by area, even a majority, and it's a pretty big one, in urban America, trust the local police department. 24.2% have a great deal of trust in their local police department in urban America. Another 38.1% have a fair amount. Again, both of them below the national averages, but we're still looking at 62.3%. High marks. In suburban America, a great deal is the national. It's right on the money. 27.7%, which is the overall for a great deal. And then 44.5% said a fair amount. It's a big number. It's in the 70s. Rural America is also in the 70s, with the largest percentage saying they have a great deal, 31.4%, and another 40.8% saying a fair amount. So that was worth going into area and region for a second on that, because we're supposed to believe, let's look at race. I think that's probably race and party, right? Mm-hmm. A majority of Black and African American voters have either a fair amount or a great deal of trust. Whites are in the 70s, and so are, that's 40, 65, 67, just under high 60s for Hispanics and Latinos. So, I mean, really. In the 60s with Asians, in the 60s with American Indian and Alaskan Natives. It's like, where's the vulnerability here? Think about how bold the media and the left are going after these people, when it's like, where's the vulnerability? Even in inner city African American communities, they still, it's not as high as other places, of course, and it's to be expected. But there's still a great deal of trust. All right, Democrats, a great deal, about 24%. A fair amount, 42%. Republicans are much higher than that. They're almost 80%. They are about 80%. 37.2%, a great deal. 43%, a fair amount. 65% independents combined. And others, they have a very high unsure, no opinion. 14%, the something else category, right? But 32.4% of them said a fair amount of trust, and another 16% said they have a great deal. I don't know how it's very difficult to attack a group of people or an institution at large when you have that kind of support around the country. All right. Big tech. Let's leave that by party. All right. Somebody just said that before, right? They wanted to know about big tech. All right. A great deal of trust in big tech, about 8%. That's it. Another 29.4% said they have a fair amount. Not very much trust in big tech, 32.8%, so just about a third. And then almost a quarter on top of that says none at all. So big tech is badly, badly underwater here. The unsure is only about it's 6.7%. So they're underwater, and they're underwater pretty bad. It's a majority, and it's a pretty solid majority. Not an overwhelming, but a solid majority of American voters don't trust big tech. As an institution, they don't trust it. The only party, and I know you guys are all going to be stunned at this, the only party that comes close to a majority, but it's not even, for trust, is the Democratic Party. So Democratic voters, 13.4% said a great deal. Another 36 said a fair amount of trust in big tech. That would be, for those really quick for math, 49.4. It's still not even a majority, but big tech is in the positive among Democrats and Democrats only. Here's the rest of it. 5.5% of Republicans, a great deal. 26.5%, a fair amount. Not very much, 31. None at all, 32. Independents, less than Republicans, a great deal. 4.7. A fair amount, less than Republicans, 26.1. Not very much, more than Republicans, 32.6. And none at all, a little bit below Republicans at 26.8. So badly underwater with both Republicans and independents. But on some of these, independents gave big tech even lower marks. And Republicans have no stone to go after them. None. The something else category, by the way, is also, is just about 60%, 60.2% of who distrust. So we're going to ask a question? Yeah, question here? You have that question face on.
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for.
Okay. Yeah, question. If there are people who have like follow-ups, then stop me at the time so I don't have to go back.
I was going to. But
yeah, let's do that.
Well, there was the question during... Hold on. I have to find him.
Yeah, go back if you need to go back. Take your time.
Have you gone... Where are you? Start dropping off. He was in locals. I just said I'd ask the question too, because he wants a breakdown of.
Yeah, I'm just picking, demographics.
Can Rich nest the policing question by race and education? I want to see what the blacks think about their city police departments.
Okay. You know what? As a matter of fact, do they want to wait? I can do it right now if this thing cooperates with me. It's driving me nuts. All right, so he wants the police trust in the police, right? Nested with race and then region and area, right? So, or maybe not even region, race and area. All right.
And
is there
education.
Anything else? And education. Okay.
Yes.
You know what? That's really cool. Give me 2 seconds.
Isn't it?
I'll give you some headline stuff, with it, but I'll also put it up there because that's a good idea. And I'm creating it right now. We have a bunch of other stuff too. Before the show, that's what I got.
I wonder how much of it is Democrats that generally trust government like institutions, but not much toward for-profit.
Local entities. Is different, you know what I mean? When it comes to Democrats, it's like local
wants to know
trust
if there's a trend in the data.
Well, let's find out. Here, let me see if this thing will help me.
I like your comment, Dark Vader. Republicans, politicians are idiots, corrupt.
They're so stupid.
So are we really that surprised?
I mean, they're so stupid.
They are dumb.
You have 60 plus, nearly 70% of independents saying they can't stand your enemy, and you do nothing about it.
I know.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's I told you this poll should be the Republican incompetence poll.
And then there was a question about the Biden COVID. Any indication that Biden COVID approval is more about Biden not screwing it up, and he's not Trump since he basically hasn't offered anything.
That's the way that's my
assessment.
That's my That's my gut on this. Mm-hmm. More than a gut. It comes from me polling from prior year, and people saying, why they would vote for Biden, even though they really couldn't. They didn't even like him.
Yeah.
Biden's favorability rating in our national polling was not good.
And Neil wants to know about regarding COVID. Could the disapproval figures include Democrats who think he has not gone far enough?
In COVID?
Yeah.
Well, it's lower. So it definitely comes from he's got good marks on COVID. So the disapproval really is on other issues. So and it stems from independents and something. Independents only give him good marks on COVID. That's it. So I don't know. I mean Democrats are like universally behind Joe Biden. Basically, they are. So if there's, and you guys will see that. I'll put that up. But there's not much more room to erode him. I mean, you can erode him among his base, but Democrats are just happy it's not Donald Trump anymore. I mean, they really, I don't think they'll budge all that much on that particular issue because it's kind of like a credibility thing. If their guy doesn't pan out, then what was the point? Since even a bunch of them on the border, now on the border, that's why we ask the question the way we ask it. Because if you just say immigration, like the media does, then you can leave open the option that Democrats will say they disapprove because they didn't get 30 million amnesties. You know what I mean? So we want to attach that to border security on purpose. Because then we know where are these legitimate, Democratic negatives because he's just not doing the basic job. And Democrats agreed wholeheartedly on the questions we asked about whether or not to encourage unvaccinated migrants from South America to illegally cross the border at this time with promises of citizenship, right? And then the other one, providing a pathway to citizenship for those who illegally migrated to the U.S. When more than 10 million Americans are out of work. So they basically, that tips us off because they don't agree with this. Many of them, not huge majorities, but many of them. All right, which I think I did put that one up already, but okay, what this was about: trust in the local police by age, by race,
Thank you.
area, and how the hell region, correct?
There's
race, area, education. That's
Thank
what he
you.
wanted. Yes.
I was like, no.
There we go.
I'm like,
Okay.
you're missing something.
Here's some top lines right here. Okay, and he's more concerned. Would I be fair to say he's more concerned with Black Americans?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's update.
It was a hard swallow.
Okay, here we go.
My throat is sore.
Okay, so
Let me go.
this is interesting. This is really interesting.
I love nitpicking.
It's still a majority. High school GED or less appears to be the lowest group. I just want to glance at it before get this. African Americans with a graduate degree who live in urban America. Only about 7% have a great deal, but 62% have a fair amount of trust. That's weird. That's completely lopsided. Small subgroup, maybe higher.
Yet another narrative.
Yeah, it's just that you could see, what it looks like? You could see and I don't really know how else to say this, but we all know some of the urban radicalization, like the black liberation theology that gets on college campuses, the Panther that gets on college, that's that 7%. That's 7%. That's like, I hate the police.
Well, of course, because they don't like getting arrested for breaking the law.
Right. I mean, right, because they're
Sorry.
right. But then there is this huge other group that's educated and says, you know what? I don't have a great deal of trust, but I trust them. Right. Undergraduates. This is urban America. Undergraduates, 27% had a great deal of trust. Another 51.3% had a fair amount. Some associates is 16.5. Some college or an associate degree. Thank you for the mint.
Well, I know my
throat's
was
killing me. Thank you.
killing me, so.
Is 16.5 a great deal? 34% a fair amount. So still a majority. Not very big one, but it's just over the 50. The only group that doesn't have a majority trust, although it's still positive. And what I mean by that is the police still get more positive marks than they do negative marks from this group. It's just that it's a plurality instead of a majority. Mm-hmm. And it's close. It's really close. About 45% combined, while the other one is 39. So it's still, police are still about +6 with this category. High school, GED, or less. And actually, I could break that up even more because I strongly suspect it's no high school degree, no GED that is driving that. Give me 1 second. I could break this up even more. When we show it to you guys, we show you those groups combined, like exit polls do, but we do have education detail. We ask people specifically, and I want to see that right now. Okay. I was completely right. Pre-high school, secondary, that's where most of the negative marks come from. As do, and then some, yeah, right here, that's pre-high school, secondary. They get there's almost none that have a great deal. I mean, it's so statistically insignificant, I can't even give you a number. That's how, it's a small subsample, of course, but that's where it's come from. So it's people who don't have a degree. Now let's look though at, let me get rid of the detail, put back the general education. Let's look at other areas. That was urban America. Black voters in urban America. Let's look at other areas. Suburban voters. Yeah, see, as soon as we get to suburban voters, a majority, even in the high school GED and less, still give the police positive marks. A quarter about, say, a great deal, and about 17%, say, a fair amount, right? So, 24. So, it's a little bit better. It's not fantastic, but a little bit better. Some associates, that graduate number is weird to me, Laura. In suburban America, the African American black voters with a graduate degree, 70.4% say a fair amount, but a great deal is a hard sell. It's a hard sell to this group. It just is. You can see it. I wonder if that's true even in rural America. Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, looks like rural black voters who are highly educated are the most distrustful. That's an interesting finding. Now, they also start to see some of the highest numbers in rural America among people who have some college or an associate's degree. That's also interesting. But really, the suburban, affluent, but not highly educated black voter is the most trustworthy of the police, it looks like. Just at a glance. And there's some really interesting numbers in urban America. They got higher marks in urban America from black and African Americans than I thought. And what he said it before, it's true. Another media narrative bites the dust. Because, and Rasmussen found something similar to this too. Oh, I thought you were repeating what he said.
No, that was all Laura.
Rasmussen found something similar too. I remember, it was Ted. Somebody had sent me a message and was, look, this is urban America. This is urban black voters. It's coming from urban black voters. That was a while ago. I don't remember exactly how they asked it, but the gist was that it didn't make sense compared to everything we're supposed to hear. I need to get another, a size or something. This thing wants to pop out of my ear. Yeah, if anybody else has any other suggestions about what to nest, feel free. I don't mind doing that live. That was interesting. And I'll put that up for you too. All right?
Yes.
Because that's very, very interesting. I don't want to get into UFOs until after the break, so.
Yeah. No.
And I do want to take some questions before we have Dawn on.
Sandy was just saying, for the police, is education a surrogate for success in the black community? Would be interesting to see how other success metrics play into faith in police.
Yeah, I was thinking income would be another one to do. You know what?
And
hang on tight. Just hang on.
See what you did, Sandy.
That's a good. I was thinking income, and here's why. Income can be misleading. Sometimes somebody can be educated but not make a whole hell of a lot of money. And then you have them completely disconnected from this other group of people who they're not highly educated, but they do very well. That means they're like wow, there's no doubt. Are you ready? No doubt. Okay. In urban America, the 200,000 category or more, almost universal faith, lopsided, almost unanimously, to a great deal. 54.1% of those who, and this is urban black and African Americans, 54.1% who made 100,000 to 200,000 have a great deal of trust. The 50 to 100,000, the working class black urban voter, 28% a great deal, 35% a fair amount. That really starts it. So you have your collapse starts in that, even under 30,000 is not bad. It's only 9% a great deal, but another 50, that's at a fair amount. 30 to 50, a great deal, 12%, a fair amount, 24. So that would be one of the weaker categories. And I guess, I would say, I don't know what job to kind of like come up with at the 30 to 50, but use your imagination, guys. But even the under 50 category in suburban America, pretty solid majority. It looks like about 67.5, not bad. About a majority in the 30 to 50. It gets much better in suburban America. The 50 to 100, a little bit shaky. Shaky by me is 47%, still say a fair amount. It's just that it went down quite a bit. And then the 100 to 200,000, that's a nice majority for police. They should be happy with that one. 200 or more starts to take a dive in suburban America. All right, so you have the yuppies, who are
the yuppies and the guppies.
Yeah, and it's like, I gotta be honest with you guys that it's not that much different from white people. You have a very, except for the fact that urban African Americans are more trusting of police than some of the other areas. That's shocking to me, but it's true. That's what we got. Under 50 in rural America is about 50% trust, about 31% distrust. And I'm combining, the two from each side. 30 to 50, that's 47 plus 2.5. That's 50 on the money. The 30 to 50,000 a year, it's slightly positive. In rural, the 50 to 100 is negative. 100 to 200 is negative. And then in rural America, the 200,000 is the opposite of suburban America. So urban and rural black Americans who make a lot of money are completely opposite from the suburbans. They have more trust in police. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I hope that answered your questions. Got any more like that? Because that was dope. Oh, it was cool. But I gotta take this out.
Well, it's good for your throat, though.
Time. Yeah, I know it is, but I can't talk with it in my mouth. And
it keeps moving around.
Yeah, every time I go to talk, I'm afraid I'm gonna spit it out and hit you across the table with it.
Wouldn't that be great?
Check this out, Laura. In the Northeast, pong right off the forehead. That would be horrible.
Jay Patel would like to know, what will Biden's gun position do with the inner city voter?
I can't wait to get into the next poll, because guns issue in general, there were a couple of questions I really wanted to ask. And the gun issue in general got kind of booted because it took a backseat to some other stuff in the news. And you really do have to watch the size of surveys. But now it's clearly moving to the forefront of the news again. And I hope we'll get back in the field before.
Now,
I don't think it will be irrelevant.
Here's a great question. Is this more about local beat cops or higher rank officers and unions? Maybe random beat cops garner trust because they're neighbors.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at these urban numbers, which are a little bit shocking to me. There is, without a doubt, a lot of urban police departments reaching out to their communities, less so than you might see in the suburb. All right, so it would make a little, or even maybe in rural America. It makes more sense to me. Plus, what are they? What are they more in urban centers? Like New York, NYPD is majority minority. The NYPD, they have been majority minority for years. Now, that's not the same in upstate New York, in rural New York, where if you're an African or a Black American in rural New York, chances are when you get pulled over, you're getting pulled over by a white cop. So this actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of does make sense to me. It's just even still me after all these years. The media BS, can confuse you. And you stop thinking like a normal American with normal life experiences. Or you stop being knee jerk reaction to that kind of stuff. Take a deeper look into it. Makes sense. It does. Look at Shaq. Remember the program with Shaq?
Yeah.
Look in in Gainesville. Do you remember that? Speaking of Shaq.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. I mean, guys.
Listen, in Gainesville, Florida, our police really do go above and beyond. So they even have events inside our school systems.
Yep.
The deputy in the school that I worked with, I mean, they
during the Michael Brown shooting, do you remember that?
And they showed the real side of police officers, so it's not so angry on the news all the time.
It's hilarious what I saw them do.
They had basketball game. How funny was it though that they had donuts day? Get it? They make fun of themselves.
So I would go and tutor at this at-risk. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want them to get bombarded by lefties who go nuts. But there was this center for at-risk youth, and I would go there and tutor. And of course, they want to get that out of the way as fast as possible, and they want to play basketball or do something like that. And the police rolled up, lights wailing, right? And it was during a sensitive thing that had happened in the community. And they jump out, and they're like playing it. It was a trick. It was like a trick, And they wanted to play basketball. And they jump out and they're like, "What's going on here? Why hasn't the game started yet? Come on, let's go!" And then all the cops ran and just, it's a bunch of different white cops, black cops, whatever. But they were all just jumped on the court and started to play basketball with these kids.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. And then, not long after, is when, no kidding, Shaq shows up with the cops. You remember that? It was, they made real effort. So I'm thinking in my head, yeah, it does make sense. Because you have more of those community reach out programs going on, right? You certainly do. And remember the interviews we did in New York City? Whoops, that's all right. Remember the interviews we did in New York? It was Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Yes.
About Rudy Giuliani, and we asked about Rudy's policing methods and tactics. And it was they were like, "No, we want Rudy back." Remember that? It was overwhelming. We want Rudy back. I could walk up the road when Rudy was the mayor. I knew my cop. I didn't have no problem because I wasn't doing nothing wrong.
And those single black mothers, I tell you.
Oh, yes.
They wanted the cops there because to keep the riffraff from their babies.
Rudy left and so did the police. Now my neighborhood's not even safe. I mean, it was, again, leave it to the media to tell the completely wrong story. I mean, all right, so that's local police.
Real quick
was there
question.
something else? Yeah.
No, just a general question are Indians from India, Asia area, are they usually more conservative or more democratic?
So they are a swing vote. I view them to be a swing vote. You mean India?
India.
They are getting more Republican.
Not native.
I am seeing them get more Republican. So I think Republicans kind of lost touch with them for a little bit there. In 2016, Trump carried the other category in our sampling, which was like 3,000 rolling average. And we separated Asians that were from countries like China, Taiwan, Japan, down the line. And Middle Eastern countries, for instance, we separated them. And then the other category, which included the largest one, was India. People who migrated or naturalized here now could vote. And they are Indian, not Native American, Indian, from India. And Trump carried it by like 52-48, that category. Now I'm seeing them get a little bit more Republican, more conservative. I am. That's maybe an unrealized potential, I think, at this point. Unrealized. And look, you know what? I have friends who live in India. Journalist friends who are in India. They love Donald Trump.
Yep.
Right? They love him. Even the political class, they loved him. The people love him. He is very, very popular in India. So, it was reinforcing. Is my point. All right, it is 12:06. You want to take a little bit to do the break, gather some questions when we come back. Sure. And that'll give me a couple of minutes to go over UFOs. And then we'll roll into dawn. So we'll do questions, UFOs, roll into dawn. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a man with a plan.
Sounds like a man with a plan. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. And you can still follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit, but definitely sign up for locals and you can help build surveys just like this one. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right? When we come back, we will hit up the change, the shift in dichotomy, belief in extraterrestrial life, alien visitations. Who else does this, folks? Let's just get real. Who else would do this? Just me. All right. And then we'll have Don Smith on from the Don Smith Show. All right. 2 minutes. We'll be back. Special thanks to the Bone Band for this fantastic theme song.
Bad habit.
Bad habit, baby.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head? Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're
Hold on.
I got you. It's
All right,
about,
so
it's about to go. It's go. Yeah. Wait. You want to say it?
Introducing the Galactic Pollster,
Galactic
Richard Barris.
Ta-da! But before we move on to aliens, that was a fantastic question. Let's do this.
So, Real Jim asked a great question. Do rural blacks in the South trust cops more than northern rural blacks? Many areas in the South are black majority, so I doubt that they are being pulled over by white cops as often as northern rural cops. See that one?
So check this out. This is strange to me because that was a great question. I feel you on where you're going with this. But in truth, it's a little bit mixed here, okay? Both are about generally about 8 in 10, all right? Indicate some trust, whether they are rural,
northern rural blacks. I said cops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And actually, wait. I'm looking at the wrong. Let me get rid of the other races so I can look at this. Okay, because that makes sense. Maybe I was glancing at that wrong. The question is, what is the difference in trust between a rural African American in the South and a rural African American in the North? This makes more sense to me now. So, in the North, 59.2% of African American black voters told us they have a great deal of trust in their local police departments. In the South, in rural South, that's only 16.4%. However, there is a larger number that says a fair amount in rural South. So it comes, it brings them more to parity. But it's still that northern black voters trust cops more than northern rural black voters trust cops more than southern rural black voters. That was a fantastic question. And in the, it looks like that across the board, Jim. In the suburbs, for instance, 25.2%, a great deal. 30.4%, a fair amount. In the Northeast, all right? In the suburbs, in the Northeast. In the South, only 5.7 said a great deal, but 45.5 said a fair amount. So, again, getting them close, but clearly seeing that the great deal number is more in the North. And specifically, the Northeast, all right? Which, when we say North, we're speaking specifically about the Northeast. As far as urban voters go, this is interesting too. In the Northeast, urban black voters, 25.6, a great deal. 29.7, a fair amount. In the South, in urban areas, 14.7, a great deal, a lot less. And a fair amount, 22.2. Close, but still lower. Altogether, much lower than in the Northeast. Very interesting. In the Midwest, by the way, just to keep throwing them out, and in the West, a little bit less on the great deal side in the Midwest, but a huge amount, who say fair amount.
Well, now I want to get minuscule. I want to know
urban black voters in the Midwest have pretty solid trust in cops. I mean, solid. 70% said a fair amount. 23% said a great deal. That's a lot. I mean, we're talking about a very small nut. Less than 4% said not very much. Less than 4% said none at all. So in the Midwest, which is where this trial is going on right now, that's incredible.
That's good stuff.
That was, Jim, great question.
Yes.
Fantastic question.
Yes.
All right. So we put out the, before we bring on Dawn at 12:30.
Questions.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to get through the UFOs
okay,
first, all right? Before we...
well, I have a UFO question for you, too.
Just give me the question, then maybe that'll lead me into what we're going to do.
Sure, I figured it'd be a nice segue. I want to know if Rich believes if these UFOs are aliens from another planet or whether they are interdimensional beings.
Oh, my personal opinion?
Like, if aliens are, in fact, real... What would you think that they are, like actual beings?
Let me put on my science cap for a second. Wouldn't it have to be true that they would, one would have to follow the other, because nearest stars are so far away. Even the blue planets that we found thanks to the Trump telescope. All right. They're so far away, they can only travel, like light speed's not fast enough. It has to be like a wormhole. Yeah. It has to be.
Like Einstein was right.
Yes.
That it has to
you
fold
have to
and punch a hole.
You have to bend, yes. And what we mean by that is...
Yep, that'll do.
Yeah, can I have a paper towel real quick? All right, so... This is crazy. I'm doing this right now.
You love
So
that.
here we are.
I don't know if they could see.
Yeah, they can. Here we are. There's planet Earth. Super, 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 super far away is planet whatever. All right.
Planet blue.
Planet, yeah, some other blue planet that we can't reach and will never, it would take more than generations to even get to. It's not going to happen. You can't even get there through light speed. So instead, you have to fold space and time and poke a hole through it so you can go in one and out the other and end up on the other side
without aging a billion years and dying.
Well, right, because you're not really dealing with time anymore. You're moving the space between spaces. So really, doesn't it follow? Because I've heard this argument before. Yeah. Doesn't it really follow that they have to be interdimensional because they have to pass through one space
in order to?
Yeah.
Or do you think it would be more mythical, like as if?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into deep
I'm just saying that I don't think we know enough. We're babies in this. We're such babies in this. But that's funny. I'll get into these conversations like crazy. I'll tell you.
Well, somebody just said plot twist: aliens are elves who live 10,000 years and don't care about wait time.
Sick. Can I get some of that gene therapy?
Yeah.
Forget about the mRNA vaccine. I'll take that gene, please. All right, so we actually 3 years ago, I got these questions from a survey we had conducted 3 years ago. I molded them back then, even off of some of the other questions I have seen asked in the past. Gallup, I don't know when the last time Gallup is that they asked this, but they used to. And then we have our own questions that we put together, all right? And I think this is important to do first, all right? Which comes closer to your view on UFO sightings? And the reason why we did this, by the way, is because of what had happened with ATIP. And then and then later, briefings followed. But we asked in April 2018. And if you guys remember, that was a little bit after Luis Elizondo had become public and said, listen, I was ahead of this program called ATIP. And we were investigating encounters by U.S. naval aviators. All right, and here's some video to prove it. All right, so views on UFO sightings. What is behind them? Which comes closer to your view on UFO sightings? At least some can be attributed to extraterrestrial intelligence visiting Earth, or all can be explained by human activity on Earth or natural phenomena. Here's where we are now. 38.5%. And check out the press release, by the way. There's a data table in there where you can look at different subgroups. 38.5% said at least some can be attributed to extraterrestrial intelligence visiting Earth. All can be, and 32.4% said all can be explained by human activity or natural phenomena. This is the first time we don't have a long history of this, but last time it was flipped. And by the way, almost 30% said they were unsure, which is sizable. All right, but last time it was flipped. More people told us all can be explained by human activity or natural phenomena. Now, it wasn't overwhelming, but it was still large enough. It was about 6 points. So now we have ET plus 6.1. All right. Last time we did this, it was natural phenomena about plus 6, right? So we're looking at about a 12-point shift since the last time we asked. This is the first time that we have seen views shifting slightly in favor of a belief in visitations over human activity or natural phenomena. And then this is backed up by what we found in the later questions. And by the way, the reason why you should look at that data table is to show you just how consistent this is across the board. So in the West, when we're talking about regionally, the Northeast, the South, and the Midwest are almost identical. They range from 36.3 in the Northeast to 37.9 in the Midwest. The West, 43.1% said it was extraterrestrial visitations. Now, from the Northeast to the West, it ranged from 30.9 saying it was natural or human activity in the Midwest, and the high regionally is the Northeast, 33.3. So again, it's really consistent, and I was really shocked by it. Religious views, by the way, Muslims are the most likely to say that it's not visitations. All right, they also were the most likely to say they don't believe in alien life. So the white born-again evangelical Christian we're all supposed to think is backward and closed-minded is actually not very closed-minded at all. Which honestly shocked me a little bit. Because I have seen, even 3 years ago, what we found wasn't as bad as Gallup. But in some of the Gallup findings years ago, they did find disparities. And then on education, I really think that some of these others reported this incorrectly. It is nothing to do with you're the Appalachia, unschooled voter. It's not. Everybody is generally in sync, except for the wannabe highly educated elite, right? That's what we call them over here. There's just we really have never been able to find a better characterization. But maybe they're not elites, but they sure want to be. And they got, advanced degrees and will spend 50 minutes on the phone with you telling you how smart they are, right? I mean, those people. And they are the least likely to say that they're visitations and that they believe in extraterrestrial life. So even if you think that most people are mistaken, you still could think that there's extraterrestrial life forms elsewhere in the universe, and they really don't. All right, so I found that to be very interesting. Men and females, they are almost across the board. Women are slightly less likely, about 2 points, to say that it's human activity or a natural phenomena. So again, very open-minded. Across the board, ages, there was a little bit of the disparity with ages. Younger people did tend to say at a little bit higher rate that some were ET visitations, 41.2% versus the low, which was in the 30 to 44 category of 36.8. And the older, what Barnes and I were talking about the other day, the X-Files generation, 39.2, and 65 plus is 37. So, still though, very close. Whether it's urban America, 38.0, suburban America, 38.9, or rural America, 37.9. I mean, identical to urban America. 0.1 of a percentage point off. And remarkable how consistent it is across the board. All right, next question.
Oh, me? Oh, okay.
Well, that was on that. Yeah, you can throw another question
there's
out.
two...
You could throw another one out.
Is Men in Black based in reality?
I don't know. Can we stick to public opinion?
That was a good question.
I don't know. I mean,
then
probably. Well, look. You know what?
Probably.
Let me get to this.
Look what.
The last question.
What about Reagan?
The last question, we can deal with this.
Reagan had
the last question we could deal with this. Reagan believed in UFOs is where she's going with this. He, as the governor of California, was traveling in his airplane and saw something outside of his airplane. And ever since, Reagan had become and Jimmy Carter filed a report with MoveOn because he saw one too. All right. And Laura keeps smiling because she's getting me to talk about this. But Reagan actually mentioned
how little would our problems be?
At a United Nations speech before the General Assembly, the United Nations, he said, think back, Cold War era, right? Russia, U.S., and he said, I often think how quickly we would all put aside our petty differences between nations if we were ever faced with an invasion from a life form elsewhere in the universe or something like that. And people were like, the old man's lost it. But he, that's not really what he was. Hindsight. He thought a lot about this. And apparently so did, according to Jackie Gleason, who was personal friends with Richard Nixon. Apparently Richard Nixon thought a lot about this as well. And that I'm not getting into that, though. There's a lot of stories with that. But as far as Men in Black and what the government may know and what they're telling us, we asked, do you believe the U.S. government knows more about UFOs than it claims? Yes was 62%. And no was 17.4%. And just about 21%, 20.6%, said they were unsure. Yeah, what do you...
What I'm just saying is that data kind of is like a tell on our other data pool of like just how many believe, how many don't believe.
Yeah.
Because they believe their government knows
right.
more.
I know. Yeah, Laura and I, we found some people to be suspicious. Right. So how could you think that they know more about UFOs if you don't believe UFOs exist? Some of these answers were a little shocking to me. It's like there's overlap there between people who would say they're unsure about what is causing these sightings. They're unsure about whether or not they believe aliens exist, but they're sure the government knows more. Mm-hmm. Well, how could that be? It doesn't make sense. But whatever. Statistics are statistics, You can find some really crazy stuff sometimes.
Now, I want to ask a scientist this. What's the maximum speed you could reach in space? That's interesting.
Well, theoretically, light speed.
Well, yeah, but beyond. I mean, think about it. There's no resistance.
No. Actually, theoretically, that is. But by principle, I think you can never reach it. That's a good. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a scientist. Right?
I want to ask a scientist.
That's interesting.
I'm going to find a scientist to ask that question.
Another. Well, it's 12:27. I don't want to leave Don. I don't want to leave Don hanging. Let me get through these. Okay. Mm-hmm. Real quick. This is another increase from 3 years ago. Have you personally ever witnessed anything you believe to be a UFO? Know someone else who sincerely believes they have, or does neither apply to you? Yes, I've personally witnessed what I believe to be a UFO. 18%. Nearly 2 in 10. Just about 2 in 10. No, but I know someone who sincerely believes they witnessed a UFO. 20%. 2 in 10 on the money. Still, no, I've never witnessed a UFO, and neither has anyone I know. But still the majority, of course, it's 62%. However, when we asked this question in April of 2018, let's see. Oh, and by the way, I have the numbers from the last one on that first question. 12% said they personally witnessed a UFO. So now we're up now to 18 from 12 3 years ago. And as far as whether or not they believe there's extraterrestrial life in the universe, just to burn through this real quick because we're running out of time, 58.6% said yes, they believe there is life elsewhere in the universe. And then also, in April of 2018, when we asked if people thought it was a visitation from an alien race, or natural phenomena or human activity, 31.1 said that it was visitations. So we're all the way up to 38.5 now. That's a big shift. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it shifted in both directions. So the number of people who said that it is up 7.4. The number of people who says it was natural phenomena is down about 8 points. So that's... While it doesn't look like that, that's sizable. That is sizable. And interesting to see if it continues. This is something we should probably ask like once a year. That'd be cool. Because now we have 2 polls. Because
at least you'll have an annual...
Yeah. Kind of like a religion poll. Yeah. Where you gauge how many people identify as Protestant. How many people... Which we do all the time. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we see the... Axios report the other day, America's losing its religion, and that was based off of the annual survey, but something like that, very cool. All right, so give me your question before we bring in Don here.
With Biden's recent remarks of gun control, do you plan on pulling gun control measures for your next poll, or have you already?
Yeah, that's what I want to... Guys, that is at the top of my list. The next one is up already. I do have to... It's already about a third funded. It doesn't show it because I can't figure out yet how to do it without having the donation thing count double. So I need to figure out how to take those donations that were overfunded and attribute them to the next one.
We'll figure it out.
And I'll figure it out. But that's I'm dying to hit that new one because I put this one as the early spring, and I put this next one as late spring, because we did raise that fund got fully funded. That poll got fully funded pretty quickly, so I figured late spring was a safe bet. Guns, and what was the other one I said before? The gun issues, and there's a couple of other things. Second Amendment stuff. I have several Second Amendment questions I want to ask in this next one.
Yes.
And there's a couple other things too, but I mentioned it before. But on your specific question, yes, multiple, probably about 4 different kinds of questions, because whether or not they believe gun control is effective, whether or not the Second Amendment, grants you certain rights. I mean, because when we talk about these infringements, they always come in the form of public safety. But we want to take another direction and say, well, what do you think is insured by the Second Amendment? Right.
Yeah, we're going to give you minuscule wording that doesn't skew and group
that's right.
the statement.
Right. We're not going to be using talking points.
Yeah.
All right.
R. Garza wants to know, if people start dropping dead of the vaccine or having complications near the end of the year, who do you think will get the blame? Biden, Trump, the media, Fauci, medical workers?
Oh, I think they'll try to blame Donald Trump.
All day,
I think all day. But then I don't think that'll be. They'll say that the Trump administration issued the emergency use authorizations for the first time ever for this kind of a vaccine pandemic and blah 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 blah. They'll definitely try that, but eventually Democrats, if it comes back on them, eventually Democrats will use the companies as a scapegoat. So Pfizer, Moderna, the rest of you will be the scapegoats, because they know you can't really be harmed anyway, and it'll just come out of the Johnny and Susie taxpayer, because that's the way. Unfortunately, that is the way our system is set up. You can't sue. They want gun manufacturers to be held accountable. They already gave immunity to vaccine developers, manufacturers. And if something does happen, the taxpayer picks the bill up, not them. So it'll be a big charade. If they have to make it one, they will. They'll make it a charade.
Does Rich think Jim Jordan would make a good speaker?
I think he'd make a speaker. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I
think he'd make a better one. I don't know if he'd make a good one, but he certainly would make a better one, because you have think about it. I mean, you got Kevin McCarthy now. I think what's his name would have made a much better one. His buddy Mark Meadows.
Mark
as far as I mean, if you're talking about who represents the party, Mark Meadows would have made a much better speaker.
Do you think the basis upon which big tech is deciding to censor people can or will be used against other groups or you in the future?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think they already are coming for people like me. I think they absolutely will. I don't even think that's a doubt. That there's not a doubt in my mind that if this is just going to get more out of control. There's nobody to stop them. So why, if you were them guys, why on earth would you stop?
Force,
why, if you weren't met right, if you're not being met with force, if you're not being shut down or told to stop yourself, then you have no incentive to do it, and nobody ever punishes them. So there's they're going to continue to do it.
Erin Sinclair would like to know if you could vote today, would you vote for Trump or Biden?
Oh, in another poll, yes. You mean? Yeah, I guess we could do that. Here's the problem with that, though. I saw a lot of these other pollsters doing that, and it was all very cute and everything. But the fact of the matter is, people lie to you. They lie. And they say, when you ask them, who did you vote for before? They tend to lie. And it's difficult to, it's like one of those things, Laura, where I have a hard time doing it, because I feel like I could be misleading people by I don't trust people to tell me the truth. And there's no way for me to validate or verify whether or not they are. So, I don't know. I'll think about it.
Vorpal.
I'll think about it.
I can't say this name. Vorpal wants to know, have you guys looked in New Mexico 1 special election on June 1st? D plus 16 last year, but specials are always weird and anti-party in charge. Ted Kennedy won his last election by 29 points. Then Scott Brown won the Massachusetts special by 5. So wondering if you...
Yeah, it's always a tough... That's going to be a tough lift, guys. Things do change, but that's going to be a tough lift. New Mexico was a bit of a... You would really need all the political stars to align to get a district like that. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's just it's a hard one. I'm just being real with you. Yeah, I mean, look, Doug Jones can beat a Roy Moore in Alabama. If all the political stars can align, Scott Brown can beat a Ted, the Warren at the time, right? Runner up for the Lions seat. Things can happen. It's just there are sweeter pots to go at. There really are. I mean, there are better targets than this.
Rich, is Adam Carolla running for California governor?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I will say that will depend on... I mean, I haven't spoken with him. I don't know if that's legit or not, but I will say that we'll see. If one person gets in, he's going to scare everybody else out anyway. So, and he would... I don't know how viable someone like an Adam Carolla would be. Right. I'm trying to be nice here.
Evan would like to know, what would you say that a GOP is likely to take back at least the House next year?
I think it's a little too early for that. Definitely, history is on the side of the Republican Party. There's no doubt about that. But things are very, very different than they have been. History was also on the side of Donald Trump, guys. Big time. Had the pandemic not occurred, had the rule changes not taken place, I think we'd no doubt be looking at a second Trump term. But still, even with all of that, the registration changes, everything, all of the highly predictive indicators were on the side of the incumbent president, as is almost always the case, and yet he lost because of the structural changes to our election system. And I wouldn't count on the win, I wouldn't count on the rules of, applying anymore. No, that's why I really do feel as strongly as I do about these reforms, because that you're throwing out the book.
Yeah. Is it even legal that Democrats using public funds against Republicans?
Yes. In some cases, yeah. I mean, if it's what I'm thinking you're talking about, it is. Yeah. Let me bring on Don, though. It's about 20 minutes in here, and he's sitting there hanging tight.
Sorry, Don.
Don, my friend, can you hear me? I can't hear him. Can you hear him?
Oh, you're asking me now?
Yeah, can you plug it in just to make sure? I can't hear him. I mean on your end. I mean on your end.
Oh, my end.
Yeah. And give me the heads up, because I can't hear him. I may have muted him, though. I don't know. There he is.
Hello, Don?
I can hear him. Can you hear him? I can hear him. Let me put him in the live.
Well, you also have to remember I'm in a delay for you.
There he is.
Hey.
Actually, let's go to the other one, Don. I can hear you just fine, buddy. I got you a little bit blue right there, but we'll fix that. I don't know how long you were listening. We had a long talk today about Joe Biden's approval ratings. I mean, bottom line, Don, COVID is propping him up. That's the only issue he gets high marks on. He is at 54% rounding in our poll. That is a new high for him with us. He has been bobbing between 48 and 52. His COVID approval, though, went from like 55 to 59. And then with that, drug up his overall approval. He's negative 11 on immigration. He's negative on foreign policy. He's negative on U.S.-China relations. And he's even negative by a little bit on the economy with all of this stimulus, crack cocaine going out. So, without the vaccinations, Don, he's got nothing. And all of his support, with the exception of coronavirus, all of the intensity indexes are against him. So far more people say they strongly disapprove of the job he's doing on immigration, on U.S.-China relations, and down the line. then it's much bigger number than the strongly approve on these issues. And even on his overall approval, his intensity index is negative. So, I mean, that tells me he's weak. And without COVID, so what what does that tell you about how fast they're going to move on other issues? Because if you're them, Don, you got to be thinking, if I want to go radical gun control, if I want to go nuts on, pack a whole, you were completely right, by the way, about what they were going to do with this infrastructure bill. You were 100% right. What does that tell you we're in for, brother?
I think if I'm Nancy Pelosi, I'm pretty nervous because they don't have a big lead right now in the House of Republican Representatives. So I think I'd be pretty nervous if I was Nancy Pelosi. I think fundraising is always a big issue with her, and I think this impacts that. I'm curious to see what happens after what he did yesterday with the gun control stuff, because that's I can't imagine that's popular with anybody. But the immigration, I mean, that should really be even a bigger number. -11, it's not good, but I would think it would be much bigger. I think what it proves is it really wasn't a concern of the left. The kids in cages was just another orange man bad campaign. PR campaign was all it was, because they should be outraged by what's going on right now. They should really be furious, but I'm not hearing that. So I think even when it comes to COVID, I don't really know what he supposedly has done to get approval for that. I think it was just simply the nonstop media narrative, orange man bad. Everything Trump was doing was bad, and somehow what Biden's doing, which I'm not even sure what he is doing, somehow that's good. So I'm real curious to see, though, what the Second Amendment stuff they did yesterday, how people feel about that, and what the polling does going forward on that.
Yeah, our next survey is, which is already almost a third of the way there. If we roll over, because this one was overfunded, so if we roll over, the contributions to this new one, we're already a third of the way there. I got 4 on the Second Amendment I want to ask already, because we're not going to regurgitate either side's talking points. This is what these proposals do, and we love to just read people the summary of the text. And then I want to get a sense of what they think the Second Amendment does for citizens. So what does it do? Now, forget about public safety, cute little comments like that, right? What do you believe the Second Amendment does for you? What does it ensure you have a right to? And I really want to get to the heart of that, because that always gets lost in the sauce, Don. And we start talking about deer hunting and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. The founders would they'd make a mockery out of us if they were alive today. They'd eviscerate us today over this. I mean, this completely over our heads, the Second Amendment. But the Midwest, which he relied on heavily, there are a lot of pro-Second Amendment Democrats in the Midwest, which, if you remember when Donald Trump was considering red flag laws, I ran that voter analysis. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Look at how many Democrats still contribute to Second Amendment causes. This is FEC database stuff. I mean, you do that and you will never win enough crossover support to carry any of these states. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, not going to happen. They're gone. They are gone. And, he backed off of that, which was the smart thing to do. But Democrats want to move this party in a different direction. And I do feel that they'll leave those voters behind. And we just saw Mayor of Nevada in North Vegas. He said, I'm not down with this. I'm leaving the Democratic Party. He just did that yesterday or 2 days ago. He said, this is not the party it used to be. It's gone way to the left on, with socialism and everything. But the Second Amendment, that was a big key factor. That still is a pro-Second Amendment state, even though it keeps narrowly going for the Democratic candidate at the presidential level. So that is definitely going to be in the next poll. I think it was one of the ones that didn't make the cut, Don. I wish it did, but you got to be careful with the size of these surveys. But now here we are again. It's prescient.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole Second Amendment thing, like you mentioned, there's a lot of Democrats, especially in the Midwest, but all over the country. There's a lot of Democrats that get the Second Amendment. The bottom line is they're not proposing anything that changes anything. Number two, criminals don't follow laws. That's why they're criminals. So, I mean, the insanity of this is just unbelievable. But I can't believe that he went ahead and went as strong as he did. I mean, we're talking about when they talk about the holding gun manufacturers accountable. Everybody needs to understand what that means, because that is not a good thing. He's just going to shut down the gun industry. That's exactly what he's going to do.
It's gone. Yeah, they'll bully them out of existence, Don. They will never be able to take these lawsuits that come rifling their way. No pun intended, or actually, pun intended. I mean, they would never be able to survive. And they have tried this before in the past. They've tried to get jury trials to basically bury them because they couldn't get around the actual amendment in the Bill of Rights. So they're trying to do this other ways, the way we've seen them go after other industries, whether it's through, allowing them to do banking with them, right? So we saw in the Obama era, they recycled this idea. They tried. They didn't push as hard, though, as we see Joe Biden pushing. And I really do think now is a bit of a, if you care about the Second Amendment, or among not just the Second Amendment, but all of this other stuff we're talking about, now is a dangerous time for you, because they're smart. They don't believe the crappy polls out there. They know I'm right, and they know that all they have is this vaccine. And if this goes away, they're done. They have no political capital. So now would be the time to do it. So from a strategy point of view, if you're going to grab, like they told Politico and Axios in those interviews a couple weeks ago, we're going to go way beyond what anybody thought we were going to go beyond. If they're going to really do that, and they're doing it now, right now, and they're not going to waste any time on it. I mean, that's the reality of this. And I did want to, bring up and ask real quick about something else with the immigration. Or not even ask, just kind of admit, you may be a little bit right. And in truth, we may have him a little bit high. Look, I stand behind the work. We did what we always do, the very best job that we can do. But I did see some other polling from even a left-winger that I know, and they had him in the 30s on immigration. Marist had him at 33, I think. Rasmussen, who I spoke to, they asked about it. I think he was at 35. So it is possible we're a little bit too high on it, or it's possible they're a little too low yet. Give it time. But I wouldn't be surprised if we came in a little bit too pro-Biden on that. Yeah. DMX passed away. Is that what you're telling me right now? So DMX did pass away, folks. If anybody, that's a tragedy. That's a I mean, this is a guy who really didn't try to, do the. It's a heart attack, if I'm correct, right? Or stroke, or I mean, it was not something, he didn't.
Nefarious.
Yeah, I mean that's he's a little too young for that, Don.
Yep.
50 years old.
50 years old. That's a gut check to us, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was on life support for the past few days.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I had heard that. So yeah, that's sad, and of course Prince Philip, his passing as well. So that's kind of bad too. You know what's really bad about all this is all this stuff about all these years we've been doing this progressive society, this kumbaya stuff, this utopia that we were going to live in. Go on social media and look how people talk about this stuff. I mean, he's dead was the number one trend when I woke up this morning about the prince. That's just disgusting. So I don't know if this is supposed to be the utopia that we've been promised, or where we're going to go from here. But this whole drive towards how everything was going to be so much better and less racist and less this and less that, less toxic. Look at Joe Biden. He's going to unite the country. So what does he do? He goes out yesterday and attacks the Second Amendment, just straight at it. Executive orders. We heard for 4 years that Donald Trump was some kind of a tyrant, some kind of a dictator. Look at this guy. My goodness. And he's lying about the gun show. You can walk into a gun show. You can buy any weapon you want. Just walk right out. They don't even check you. I mean, false. Where are all these fact checkers from Twitter and Facebook, the eternal people of wisdom? Where are they now? Because I don't see anything. I saw one article on PolitiFact where they did fact check Joe Biden's statement yesterday, and they came up with he exaggerated. He may have exaggerated.
Yeah, but this is what PolitiFact always does. They say, technically what he said isn't true, but here's what we think he meant, and he was probably just exaggerating a little bit. And they try to explain it all the time. That's what they do with Joe Biden. I mean, Don,
Yep.
This is the biggest lie. And being that I was originally from the North, I know how these people get it. Part of this is ignorance, and then part of this, they rely on other people's ignorance to push these lies.
Right.
So it is not, I dare Joe Biden or anybody to go to a gun show in Florida or Arkansas or wherever and try to buy a gun and walk away with that gun.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you can walk away with a firearm in the state of Florida, at a gun show, at a store, anywhere, is if you already have a concealed weapons permit and you have gone through everything you would already have to go through that to satisfy their need anyway. This is a myth, and it's also a myth that I read every word of what they put out. Mm-hmm. The sad part is it will do nothing to stem gun violence or the primary driver of gun violence in this country, which is inner city gun violence. Nothing that they proposed will stem that at all. It's a myth that somehow, gangbangers in Chicago, right, and Latin Kings in New York are going down to Florida and going to those evil gun shows and arming their crews to mow down children over the weekend. That is nuts. That is not where organized crime gets their weapons from. The dirty secret is they get them from them most of the time. They get them from corrupt officials. This is crazy. If you went to a gun show and try to arm up your posse, you're going to get the crooked eye, man. The guy is going to give you as if he doesn't know, that this is some guy from a Blood or a Crip, right? And he's trying to get him and his homies 10, 15 handguns. This is nuts. This is nuts, man. It's a myth. It's a total myth. You go to those gun shows, those are people who are gun enthusiasts. Yep. People who are responsible with weapons.
They're not Eric Holder.
They're not Eric. Yeah. I mean, this is crazy. Right. Fast and Furious. You want to talk about where guns come from. You want to talk about corruption, and on how bad actors get their hands on weapons of war. Usually incompetent and corrupt officials in other countries, by the way. In other countries. You're going to stop the Chinese from shipping, Chinese-made Kalashnikovs over... Oh, give me a break, Don. This is nuts.
It really is.
It's a fraud.
One of the things too, I brought up Nancy Pelosi's name earlier. She was asked here about 4 years ago by a reporter, and they asked her. They said one of the big concerns here is that this is a slippery slope. So if you want to increase background checks, if you want to do all these things you're talking about doing, that this is a slippery slope to just completely eliminating the Second Amendment. Nancy Pelosi, who every once in a while is extremely honest with her wrap-up smear and some other things that she said. She said her response was exactly this. I sure hope it is. She actually admitted that this is a slippery slope that they want to just keep kind of chipping away at it. Because what's going to happen? Okay, so you got all these executive orders. Let's say they stand, which I don't believe they will, but let's say they do. And then the next shooting happens. And everybody goes, oh, well, all you've got to do is go back and look at the recent ones that have happened and see if any of these laws have any impact whatsoever on them. And they don't. The answer is no. So what's going to happen when the next shooting happens? Because there will be, we have a mental health issue in this country. So there will be. And what are they going to do then? They're going to say, okay, well, we just didn't go far enough with this. So everybody, certainly you can understand how we would have to do this now and then this and then this.
Yep.
So I hate the term slippery slope, but in this case, that's exactly what it is. And even Nancy Pelosi admitted it.
Yeah, and Don, we went over this 2 weeks ago, and we've done a lot of research in the past on PPD about this. Even, he who shall not be named on this show, Mr. Statistician Guru, all right? even a former employee of his said they dedicated 8 months to trying to support the media's narrative, just to show you how legit it is over there at that failing website that needs to take money to stay afloat, all right? They dedicated 8 months of their lives to trying to collect data to support this bogus media narrative. The modern mass shooting as a phenomenon. Most experts, look at the incident at the University of Texas decades, and then, as the first modern event, right? Before that, we had mass killings. Before Pulse, the biggest mass killing was a bomb at a kid's school. It had nothing to even do with firearms of any sort, which will tell you, by the way, that if they can't get a hold of that, Don, they'll just do something else. It's a fact that this country has had the Second Amendment for 200 plus years, and yet the modern phenomena of mass shootings is only decades old. No matter what they say, no matter what argument they bring up, they cannot get past that fact. We went in this country the vast majority of our history with the Second Amendment, and this was not a part of our society. They can't get past the fact. They just can't ever get past that. No matter what cute talking point, what platitude they all get behind and regurgitate over and over and over and over, they'll never be able to explain that away. Yep. And we've looked at this. The catalyst or the antagonist for these mass shootings, especially when they repeat, is the media. They create mass shootings. That is what the literature says. The FBI, academia have been pleading with them for years, since Columbine, to stop doing what they do, because everybody knows they're doing it for ideology. Stop doing what they do because they actually create more mass shootings. And if they truly cared, if this was about public safety, Don, don't you think they would curb their behavior and they'd act a little bit more responsibly? But no, it's not about public safety. It's about advancing their ideology.
Yeah, and it's about getting clicks. So when a school shooting happens, it's a gold mine for the media. Yep. It's a gold mine for all these anti-gun groups. They market it. They make money off it. This is what they do. But I want to point something out, Rich, and I think this is really important to understand, because for your viewers, let's keep our eye on the ball here. Let's not forget that this is an administration that came in that wants desperately to pack the Supreme Court. And they've just been they've been looking to create a situation where they can justify it. There is probably nothing more litigated throughout the history of our country than the Second Amendment. It's been in front of the Supreme Court several times. There's solid precedent there. So this is an opportunity. When it goes to the Supreme Court, I believe a lot of these things will be proven to be unconstitutional. So when they do that, this is going to be where they're going to make the plea on why we have to expand this court. We need reasonable thinking people on this court that care about the American lives. And you're going to see the Supreme Court under attack at some point, however long this takes to get through the system. But I believe this is what they're going to use to push expansion of the Supreme Court.
Don, and if you're right, which I think you are, if you're right, let me share some of these results and get your take on this, okay? On all of these issues that we polled in this poll, all right, from everything from transgenderism to election reforms, it was overwhelming. HR 1, Democrats had nobody on their side. I mean, so in some cases, they were overwhelming majorities that sided with the Republican arguments on these cases. The problem, I think the takeaway from this poll is Republicans have voters on their side, but they have disliked and ineffective leaders, and they can't they can't make an effective counter argument. They can't fight. I just don't know. Mitch McConnell's favorability rating, okay, is abysmal, Don. Nancy Pelosi is the highest, very unfavorable, but she overall is still less disliked than Mitch McConnell, because we have somewhat unfavorable, very unfavorable. 6 in 10, 60.2% of voters told us they had an unfavorable, either a very or somewhat unfavorable opinion of Mitch McConnell. If you're right, this argument will largely be heard in the Senate, right? Won't be made. That will be the battlefield for this argument. How are Republicans supposed to make an effective counter argument when 6 in 10 American voters can't stand the leader of their party? It's the biggest in this chamber.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem we have right now is, I mean, you really, something like Mitch McConnell's favorability or popularity or trustworthiness amongst Republicans is something you almost don't even have to poll. I mean, just look in social media, just listen, just talk to people. and they're all pretty much in unison on that. So he is one of the biggest problems we have. They're going to use him. That's one of the unfortunate things, is that because they will use him to, just like if anything comes about with this Matt Gaetz thing, they will use that. And they will just all see it because we're all Mitch McConnell, we're all Matt Gaetz, we're all, and that's what they do. They're very good at that, and the media piles on with them. The media's in their corner. They're there to save the day for these guys, and that's the really unfortunate thing about what's going on right now. The lie he told yesterday about the gun show thing. I mean, is you have PolitiFact really softly fact checking, but everybody else stuck up for him. Oh no, and they give you all these examples. Well, this is how it could happen. It happens this way. You got people telling you they've been to 100 gun shows, and oh yeah, they just walk in and buy whatever they want. These are all lies, and they're perpetrated
lies.
But the Mitch McConnell thing, it gives a little bit of credibility when they say things, because people go, yeah, well, I don't trust this Mitch McConnell guy. So if he's your speaker, if he's your point man for getting the messaging out, that's a bad thing. So it's time for him to go. I mean, I can't believe he won the last election. I'm just blown away by that. Hopefully this is his last term, and we can get beyond him, because they will always use him, just like they did with John McCain, just like they do with Mitt Romney. They will always use those guys to show that we're actually on the wrong side.
Yeah, and well, you really said it. I mean, what you just said is the reason why half of his own party can't stand his guts. They can't stand him. These numbers are abysmal. We went over them yesterday, right? I mean, the thing with Democrats is Chuck Schumer is the most, even though it's a low bar, and they don't exactly like Chuck Schumer. He is the most. He is seen as the most in the most favorable light. And he's upside down, but he's not like anybody else, and that includes Kevin McCarthy. We have 3 in 10 American voters don't even know who he is. Those who do can't stand his guts. So in order to get anywhere near positive, he would have to convince the rest of those 3 in 10 that he's on their side. I mean, some of these guys have been around forever, Don. If you are the leader of the minority in the House and 3 in 10 don't know who you are, you're not doing your job, Don. You're not doing your job. And no matter how disliked Nancy Pelosi is among independents, and it's bad. I mean, let me pull up Pelosi real quick. No matter how disliked, and it's 42.8% very unfavorable. That is driven by Republicans, independents, and those who consider themselves third party, something else. But still with Democrats, only 10% have a very unfavorable rating of her. That stands in contrast to Mitch McConnell, where 30 plus, Republicans can't stand his guts. And then even very favorable. 36% of Democrats have a very favorable opinion of Nancy Pelosi. That's 8% for Mitch McConnell among his own party. 8%. So they stick together. But going to what you're saying, they stick together. But Republicans, they allow themselves to be used by the media, and it doesn't earn them anything. They don't like them anymore, and their voters don't like them anymore. So what is it serving them? It doesn't serve them. It sure as hell doesn't serve their party, and it sure as hell doesn't serve the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that's really, really kind of scary looking ahead, if you look out in the next few years, what's going to happen? We've got on both sides of the aisle, we have aging establishment people have been in power for a long time. They control everything. They control who sits on committees and all these kind of things. But look at the next crop. I think as a Republican, as a conservative, I'm pretty comfortable with some of these people. But if Kevin McCarthy is the guy then that takes that lead role, then we haven't gained anything. But look where they're going to go on the left. You've got the AOCs emerging. You've got the entire squad, which will be in leadership positions. And so that to me is really the scariest thing, is what this next crop of leadership looks like on the left. Fairly comfortable with ours. Hopefully, we can get some better people up there. Jim Jordan's would be a great guy. I'd like to see kind of in a position of power for the Republicans. But look at the left. So that's the really scary thing, because any gains we make on the right are going to be, I think, canceled out by even more radical on the left. So that's my concern going forward.
Yeah, I think you got that equation down. And they just would not be, I mean, folks, You think the Kevin McCarthy and the Kevin McCarthy wing of the Republican Party is going to effectively counter these rising further to the left leaders that we're seeing come to the... I mean, they're already bullying Nancy Pelosi. I mean, Pelosi's always been a radical herself. She is, but she's like a team player and an establishment person. Doesn't mean she doesn't personally hold some very out of the mainstream views, but she's being pushed around right now, and that's just not... There's nobody on the Republican side who can counter that, Don. Not in a current position of power or leadership right now. And right. I think looking back for Republicans, one of the major mistakes, Mark Meadows, he went to Trump when Trump was elected. He had a plan, and he said, we can right now, we can remove Paul Ryan. I have a plan. With your help, we will execute it. And somebody else, and it was Jim Jordan was the name everyone was throwing around. Jim Jordan will be the Speaker of the House. And Trump wanted to play nice with everybody and try to unite everybody. But Mark's argument, and I think it was fairly correct, if you were to push Paul Ryan out, then we wouldn't have to worry later about Mitch McConnell. So now going up for re-election in 2020, he probably at this point he would not be dealing with the Republican leadership in the House very well, very effectively, and he may have decided it would just best for him to call it quits now. Trump gave his wife a job. Same thing we're seeing with Joe Biden trying to buy Joe Manchin's wife now. He engaged in that crap because he had these. First, he's a businessman. That was kind of the downside of that. He didn't realize that in the world of business, people that you can win them over. You can charm them. In this game, you can't, man. There's no charming
evil.
people in DC. You can't. You can't win over these people. They have to be defeated and rolled over, and that's both sides of the aisle. I'm not just talking about one or the other. Both sides of the aisle. It's just a different atmosphere, my friend. It's not the same as the business world, which we've both been in. It's not that way. He was a newcomer, and he really didn't get that.
Right. Yeah. And I think I've always said this all along, and I thought this is one of the reasons that I really liked President Trump and enjoyed those 4 years. They've always been better at us at messaging. Now, certainly it helps to have the media, in your back pocket, and you can feed things to them, and they'll leak as you request. That's why Nancy Pelosi has been so effective, and she really has. I despise Nancy Pelosi, but she's been a very effective leader because she understands messaging. She understands the power of words, and she knows how to use them. We don't. So if Kevin McCarthy is that next guy in line, he's not good at it either. Your polling proves that. People don't even know who he is. So he is not an effective leader. You've got to understand in communications, you can still win even if you don't control the media. You just have to be really aggressive, and you have to be really succinct with your messaging, and we're just not. So President Trump was just a blessing for me, being a communications guy. Watching somebody his Twitter account was just huge because he could just put it out there, and he just said it. And we've got to get better at that. And I don't know why we don't understand that. I think people like Jim Jordan do. I think Mark Meadows does. So those are the kind of people that I think it's really important that they are the next generation of leaders.
Yeah, Don, House Resolution 1, -16. Signature verification, strict signature verification, more than 75%. Photo ID, more than 75. And actually, for the first time ever, we had signature verification support higher than photo identification. And bans, think about this. They are flipping out, Don, over the Georgia law, which expanded access. It expanded it. Expanded drop boxes. Meanwhile, more than 6 in 10 voters want bans on drop boxes. They don't want drop boxes. This is just when you have public sentiment so strongly on your side. I don't know if you got a chance to see the transgender numbers. Just overwhelming in that issue, and they get bullied. Asa Hutchinson gets bullied earlier in the week. When you have those public sentiment that strongly on your side, and you still can't get the job done, even with the media handicap, like you said, of course, we all know the media is on their side. They are not media. They are political activists. But if you can't effectively seize on that kind of advantage in public sentiment, then you got to go. You're not doing anybody any good. You have got to go.
Well,
and unfortunately, they care more about themselves, Don, than they do the party, their country. Come on.
Okay, so as a communications guy, so I do public relations in addition to my show. Let me this is a great example, is this Georgia voting law. 2 weeks prior to anybody even being able to read the bill, to know what's in the bill, all these people that are talking about it and describing it in the way they're describing it, 2 weeks prior to it even being released, they had already purchased Jim Crow 2.0. So these guys had a strategy. They had a strategy, I'm sure, well before 2 weeks prior to it being released, but they went into this with a strategy to make it Jim Crow. It's racist. It stops minorities from voting and all these kind of things. So they go into it with a strategy. We don't. We put it out there and then we just let them rip it apart. It's all based on lies. As you just said, it actually expands access to voting. So this is actually a good thing. But think about this. Imagine if the leadership in the Republican Party were to come out and say, hey, listen, you are insulting minorities. When you say they can't figure out how to, like here in Florida, there was a story recently about vaccinations, and it's racist towards minorities because especially Black Floridians, they can't figure out how to make the appointment on the computer. And but in the Georgia voting law, I mean, it's getting water, it's getting your photo ID, it's getting all these things. Imagine if the leadership in the Republican Party came out and just said, we don't believe that minorities in this country are too stupid to get an ID or too lazy or whatever the implication really is. They're not even questioning, why would you even say that? But imagine if they went on offense and started pushing back on that and saying, you are insulting people in this country. That's the racism in this. You talk about systemic racism. There it is. There it is. Everything disproportionately affects because apparently they're lazy or they're stupid, or I would even question them. Speaker Pelosi, what do you mean by they can't get photo IDs? Are you suggesting that Black Americans are incapable or lazy, or what exactly is your charge? But we don't do that. We just sit here and we go, oh, it's not Jim Crow. Oh, we're not racist. I have Black friends. I mean, it's
yeah. Like I got Black friends. Don't.
But that's I say that just to show the difference in the ability to message things. 2 weeks prior to anybody even knowing what was in it, they had already purchased the domain Jim Crow 2.0. So they already knew that that's what they were going to call it. It was going to be Jim Crow, Jim Crow, Jim Crow. So we've got to be able to do that. Somebody needs to sit down and say, okay, look, we know that it's not like we didn't know they were going to call it racist. Everything is racist to them. Yeah. So come up with a strategy and point out that they are the ones who are insulting minorities in this country.
Mark Elias's tweet, which I responded to, was racist. That was, for those who haven't hung out or know these people in these circles, there is nobody more racist in this country than the gentry, urban, white liberal. Okay? I mean, it's just it is the bigotry of low expectations at its finest.
Yep.
So you're telling me, Mark Elias, you are telling me that a Black person is too stupid to find their driver's license number on their driver's license. Not even that he couldn't get one, can't get a ride, can't take public transportation to DMV. No, that a Black person who actually already has a license is too dumb to find where the number is on that license. Don, we asked this question, do you support or oppose each of the following election reforms and policies? Black and African American. This is national, because we asked this in Georgia too not long ago, and it was overwhelming even among Black voters. National numbers look very similar to numbers in Georgia. 37% strongly supported, and another 30 supported. 67% of African American voters in this country support photo identification. 67% did not think they were too stupid to find their own driver's license number. I mean, this is a no-brainer, my friend. A no-brainer. And they're going to, just like they're going to go to race, you should know that these kinds of comments are coming. And you should already be ready with the, wow, that's really racist, Mark. That's racist, Mark. I mean, what? Yeah. I mean,
that's exactly how you fight that battle.
That is exactly how you fight that battle.
You're so racist that you think I'm too dumb
Why
to
do
read
you
my
think?
driver's license
Why
number.
do you think black and brown people? And you don't even let them talk about whether or not it's racist. It is racist, and now you have to explain yourself. Is it a matter for you? Is it a matter of education or access, or do you just think black and brown people are genetically inferior? This is the kind of stuff you should be throwing at them, because you already know where they're going. What he tweeted was a racist tweet. And nobody, you think anybody on the right would have been able to get away with that?
No.
Where it's like in the tweet, it's you're presupposing inferiority of a race. Could you imagine if that was somebody on the right? Could you imagine?
It'd be a continuous loop on CNN. They would
Continuous.
they would have panel after panel after panel talking about it for 48 hours. They would keep that alive as long as they possibly could, and that's what they've been doing for years. And this whole thing is, again, it all comes down to messaging. You have to message this stuff. You have to explain this, point this out. There should have been a huge outcry from the Republicans when Joe Biden said, "If you don't know if you're voting for me or Trump, you ain't black."
You ain't black.
I mean, that's just an absolutely horrible thing to say. But they get away with it because we don't push back. We don't point it out. And when a Republican says something like that, then it's all, it's all over the media. Like I said, continuous loop. When they say it, you know what they do? I read an article here a couple of weeks ago, and it was about Joy Reid, who every time Clarence Thomas is a trend on social media, look at the white liberals. Look at the horrendous comments they make about this man.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. Joy Reid called him Uncle Clarence. So should have been a huge outcry. There should have been the Republican leadership needed to be in front of cameras. That's when they need to get in front of the camera. Say, this is unacceptable. We do not support this, whatever. But the article was conservatives are upset about Joy Reid calling.
Yeah, that's what Clarence. They do.
That's the concern, is that conservatives should be. So again, you take their own messaging, you put that up in front of a camera, and you say, you're damn right we're outraged by this because this is unacceptable. This is a great man. He should not be talked about this way. You get aggressive with it, and we just don't do that. So I hope when we do get to the next level of leadership, next generation of it, I hope they do. I hope they've learned from this, because it's infuriating for me to watch.
Yeah, the current, there was a lot of, things, and you and I spoke a lot about this in even private discussions, Don. There are a lot of things Donald Trump did that was unnecessary and he did not need to do. But if they learned anything from that man, it should have been how to flip the script and how to fight back. He literally, single-handedly, turned the term fake news against them. Single-handedly. If he was not around, then this whole alternative media industry may be in a lot of trouble. Right. I mean, from a branding, they would have tea partied us. All of us. They would have tea partied us. Without Donald Trump around, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, the rest of, whoever else wants to step forward. I mean, they would not have known what to do with that. And part of his genius was it really was branding, not even business. It was, big part of Trump's success is a brand. And he just knew how to do that and change that around. Messaging came, almost naturally to the guy. It doesn't come naturally to these guys, Don. And we're at a point where, I mean, eventually, how long can you rely on this kind of silent majority, right? Because it gets to the point now where these people are afraid to stick up for themselves. Look at what happened with MLB, right? Look at how Asa Hutchinson caves on that bill. They're afraid, and they are in the overwhelm. Instead of saying, you know what, no, you're not going to shame me. My opinion is the overwhelming majority opinion in this country. You are not going to shame me, and you're not going to shame them. What do we have? One example of a Republican. I think I can dig up one example of a Republican fighting back in the last couple of weeks over stuff like this. That's it. And that's Ron DeSantis with the fake run on 60 Minutes, what they pulled with him on 60 Minutes.
Yep.
People forget 60 Minutes was never credible. Mary Mapes, folks. Dan Rather, folks. I mean, how quick we all forget. That has always been run by ideologues.
Yep.
I mean, that's it. Pushing an agenda. They didn't have that story. They didn't have that story, Don. If they weren't rabidly ideological, they would have saw that damn postscript, even on a custom typewriter, was not the same as the one in Microsoft Word, which that document was clearly printed up on.
Yep.
I mean, the postscript was different. The typewriter had an underline. Microsoft Word did not.
Yep.
They didn't care. We act like 60 Minutes was ever credible. I don't remember it ever being credible, frankly.
And that's a great example. Ron DeSantis, to me, is the only one right now that really gets exactly everything that I'm talking about here when it comes to messaging. Yep. Look what happened. Look at the result when he came out and he said, hey, this is a bunch of garbage. None of this is true. Here's the reality of it. Here's what they cut out. What happened? The result was you had Democratic mayors who came out and said, he's right. Yeah, this is wrong.
He defended them. He defended them too. And this is what the McCarthys of the world don't get. Publix is beloved in our state. Don, you know that. How many kids have they put through college, for crying out loud? I mean, it's the good that company does is immeasurable. Forget about them being just the best grocery store ever to exist, ever. I mean, the good they do on the side, among other March of Dimes. How much money, Laura, because she was involved in how much money they gave the March of Dimes. And he actually, all he had to do was any of these other guys ever have to do. Just defend them. And just defend them. Because they're on your side.
Right. Well, and if you look at Publix too, I think a lot of people don't even know this. They're employee owned. So here you've got all the left trying to put them as, there's this evil person in charge of Publix, and they're giving money to Trump, and they supported the insurrection and all this stuff. They're employee owned. So, I mean, even on that front, they can't win there where it comes to whether you want to talk about minimum wage or any of these kind of things. This is a company that is employee owned. You don't hear that mentioned. To my knowledge, I think they're the largest employee owned grocery store chain in the country. And I think that's a good thing. So you should.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
But look at DeSantis getting aggressive, putting it out there, and the Democrats will, if they're put in that position, they will come out and say, yeah, this is wrong. This whole story is wrong. The narrative is wrong. And I even tried to talk to them and they wouldn't even talk to me. We've got to have more of that. And if we get more of that, you'll get more Democrats that'll come out and say, yeah, I really don't support this. But right now they don't have to. They don't have to because we're not getting aggressive on our end.
Yeah, you have to force them to. You have to force them to do the right thing. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. You have to. And that was, that was a very clear case. And this is why I think he did get some support from across the aisle with this too. I mean, I'm talking about elected officials, because it was a very clear case of, and the media, I've had this happen to me, where you can show them, you already know that they're in it for a narrative, and you can try to give them information and they don't want it. Go talk to this person and they'll corroborate what I'm saying. They don't care. You know, I mean, it's like, and when you have that happen, it just becomes so blatant. And then you have, again, there's pressure when you go after a popular entity like that. There's so much pressure to do the right thing. And this time they did. But it would never have happened if he didn't fight back. And he said, there is going to be consequences for this. You're not rolling over this governor. He's like, it was so funny. He's like,
not today.
They knew they were lying. I knew they were lying. Everyone over here knew they were lying. They knew that we all knew they were lying.
I love it.
He buried him. But you have to do that. And by the way, Ron, we can see that you've been practicing your hand signals as suggested. So
I loved it.
It is talking with his hands, what he's doing, those gestures.
And then when he mentioned media,
very effective.
It was like angry hands.
So whoever he got to coach him on, if that's natural, then he's got more talent than I'm giving him credit for. If that's natural, but I've even said that a lot of these aspiring guys in position leaders right now, Trump got mocked for his hand gestures. but they had a lot of power, and there's body language is very persuasive, and that people should start to really look into that more, including the governor of Florida. And he did apparently. So or like I said,
So if that's natural,
either
that's
way,
right.
kudos to whoever taught him. If they taught him that, because that was decisive and excellent. And if not, kudos to him for having that kind of natural talent in doing so, because that was incredible.
Well, people read body language more than they do.
They do. And I would say kudos to him, because I think this was, I mean, I think he's working every day to get better and better at what he does. So kudos to him for saying, hey, yeah, teach me how to do that. I'm willing to learn, and practicing it and putting the work into it, and not just being arrogant and going, yeah, I know all that stuff. So kudos to him for that.
Yeah, that's rare, Don. You know that, and I know that in this business. Just for everybody, most of these guys are all, I mean, this is why the virtue arguments used to drive me nuts under Donald Trump. My clients are, or most of the people I meet in this business, let me put it that way, I mean, they're hard to tell anything. If you want to run for office, there's a certain level of...
Majority.
No, I mean a certain level ego that you have to have. And arrogance that I guess, to even see yourself in these positions and then want to have to take the incoming to do them. And I think that's sad that that's our environment now. I do, because I know a lot of good people I think would make not only great candidates, but fantastic, whatever it may be, governors, senators, legislators, whatever. But the real deals, guys, are the hardest to convince to get in. They are the ones who are most worth it and would do the most good are the hardest to convince to get in. And one of the things that concerned me a lot about the era of Trump, Don, and breaking all the rules that we saw be broken, from an IRS employee to an NSA employee, suing for taxes that are irrelevant to legislation. What I was always concerned about was that you're going to, self-made people, right, who wanted to be public servants. That is what our founders wanted to attract to public service. And we got away from that and got into political careerism. Yeah. And if we're going to treat people the way the system treated Donald Trump, then we're not going to deserve good people who come. I mean, that's just true. You get the government you deserve, Thomas Jefferson. Or you get the government you elect is the government you deserve, Thomas Jefferson. And if you get to a point where you're not good enough to attract these people anymore because you allow them to be treated like this, unfairly, whatever you want to call it, then we're going to be left with the bottom of the barrel, Don. The bottom of the barrel, which is what we've had, I think, for many years. For many moons. Many years now.
Yeah, I think that's...
They just think they are.
That's a great point, is the people that will be dissuaded from possibly running. Hey, I was thinking about running, but man, I don't know that I want to take all that incoming fire. And you know that they're going to tear you apart. You could be, you could be anybody today and run. Yes, and they would just...
Christ would be smeared.
He would. Yeah, he would. Exactly. Yeah, so I fear that too, and there are a lot of good people, but you and I, we've met a lot of people, and I'll just want to say the two most genuine politicians that I've ever met in my life are Governor Scott Walker and Colonel Allen West. Those are just two incredibly genuine people, no matter whether you're on stage, whether you're interviewing them, whether you're just talking, they're just real people. And outside of that, there's some other good people, but there's a huge difference. That's a whole different level. I would say Ron DeSantis too is pretty close to that, but those are the two most genuine politicians I've ever met.
Yeah, I think I think Ron is, at least he'll end up where Governor Scott Walker is, or at least we'll wind up thinking about him like that. I have actually met him, but Scott Walker, I think really, Dom, what you just said is why he won Wisconsin, why he won the recalls, and why he just kept getting reelected despite all of the money. And guys, you have to remember, Wisconsin may be actually a tilting red state now. If you look at the voter file, it is shifting. It's just we've been inept. In the Trump campaign, they got duped again into believing that Wisconsin was not going to be as easy. It's more difficult to poll, for the love of God. The polls are always worse because unlike Michigan and Pennsylvania, it doesn't have a big urban population. It is a very rural compared to the others. That's more difficult to reach, more difficult to poll, and it looks a lot more like Iowa in much of the state than it ever does Pennsylvania or Michigan. So why we lump it into that category and forget about it and write it off, I don't know. I don't know.
Stupid.
I mean, it just drives me nuts. But I would say that back then, you had a guy who was going after labor, organized labor, in the birthplace of the progressive labor movement, which is what Wisconsin was. And people would just repeatedly tell us, even though I don't agree with Scott Walker, I believe him. I know what I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to vote for Scott Walker. That is what we heard over and over. And had he, sometimes you're just on the ballot one too many times. And that's what happened with Ayers the last time. He would have, if it was brand new again, you'd have beat him, but it was a very pro-democratic year. And sometimes you could just be on the ballot one too many times. And that's what happened with Scott Walker. It was time for him to move on. Otherwise, he'd have won that race too. He'd have won that race too. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think
go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say genuineness has become something that's really, really important to people. And I think it didn't used to be that way. So I think that is a really important point. When you look at a Scott Walker, you go, the guy's genuine. Trump, you may not like some of the things that he said from time to time. We talked about that, but he was genuine. He didn't sit there and go, well, let me think. He didn't have to think about it. He just said it. So you knew that was actually what he meant. It was on his mind, and he just said it. So that's still another form of genuineness.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. With that in mind, Don, what do we got for tomorrow? And then tell people, where they can find you.
Absolutely. So tomorrow is our last show on Blog Talk Radio. So last time will be just audio only. We've been working for a couple of weeks now, getting everything ready for video production. I just actually did my first recorded video here earlier, just before I came on with you. So I think we're pretty much ready to go at this point. So we're going to kind of recap. Been on Blog Talk for a long time. Before that, he was doing some streaming stuff before they even had the Blog Talk. So bittersweet to leave Blog Talk. I've had my issues over the time, and it's a little bit left leaning, but for the most part, they've left me alone. But anyway, so looking forward to really doing the video stuff. I can now record, I can do live videos and put those out during the week as things happen, and I'm looking forward to that. Put it all together in a show for Saturday. So DonSmithShow.com. You can get the link for this week's show, but also next week when we go video, it'll all be on there as well. So I'm really looking forward to the new format. Of course, you'll be on the program, but other than that, we're just going to kind of look back at some of the things that we accomplished. Even Blog Talk has come a long way since we first started with them. Certainly the show has come a long way. We've had a lot of great interviews over the years, and so a little bit bittersweet, but looking forward to wrapping up the Blog Talk stuff and getting live video. It's the thing, and so it's time to quit being a dinosaur and get with the program. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's exciting, Don. And I gotta say, I think it's gonna go well. I do. Your Rolodex of interviews is just amazing. After all, it is bittersweet. It's been so long, but you amassed a really impressive collection of interviews over there, Don. I mean, for folks, if you don't know, this guy's interviewed everybody. I mean, everyone from Donald Trump to Scott Walker. And we're just talking about one. Some of the best interviews you'll ever hear with these people, you'll hear with Don. At a time where Donald Trump was still viewed to be a circus act, even though he was clearly going to be the Republican nominee. Don Smith sat down with him and had a serious interview, of thoughtful, serious interview. You will never hear Donald Trump anywhere else in the way you did on the Don Smith show. I got to praise you up and down for it. It was a fantastic interview, my friend, really was. And we're pretty sure you caught the FBI snooping on him at that time too, because you could hear talking.
Yeah,
Street said it. Donald Trump said it. Even
Trump mentions on the call, folks. He mentions it. Hey, is that on your end, Don? Who's talking? It was It's hilarious. I got to get that clip and play it for the audience. They'll have a field day with that. I really, circle back. But I can't wait. We'll be on tomorrow with you, but I can't wait to look back too. That'll be. I'm looking forward to it. That'll be
me too.
Nostalgia. All right. So with that, my friend. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say a special thank you to you and Laura for all your help. And so Rich is kind of the guy that's kind of pushing me in this direction. Like, hey, you got to get with the times, man. And he's been very helpful in helping me work out some of the issues. Because it's a whole nother world doing the video. This. It's a whole nother world, and there's a lot more things to pay attention to. But it's a lot more professional and it's a lot more modern. And this is the thing. So I'm really excited about it. But just want to say thank you to both you guys.
Anytime, and fact check true. Have been, because I have good feelings. I got the good juju. I'm telling you, I can feel it. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow, my friend. As always, thanks for joining us, and great feedback from our Friday chats, by the way. And we'll talk more about some numbers tomorrow. Sound good?
Sounds good. We'll talk to you then. Thanks, guys.
All right, all the best, my friend. All the best.
You too.
Bye, Don.
Bye.
That's Don Smith, folks. As always, check him out noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. That'll be a little, I do hear what he's saying, bittersweet. It's been a long time. God, the years do fly by, They really do. Oh, man. So I can't wait to see what
gray hair proves it.
I can't wait to see what he puts together because he's got so much he could tap to, there's just been so many good ones. But we'll be on tomorrow. We'll talk more about numbers. I'm not even done digesting this stuff. I will put up your nested variables that a lot of you had some really great, especially the trust in local police by race, region, and what was the last one? Race, region, area. That was a good one.
Education.
And education too. We can throw that all together. I don't think it has to be 2. It'll just be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We'll nest that. I got the in-person up there already, and I'll finish throwing the rest of the Biden's approvals up there as well, so you guys can play around with them. You have any requests on locals, the locals community, you guys want to see something nested, drop it to me and Laura on locals, and we will do it, all right? We'll put it right up there on the spreadsheet. All right, so, but thanks for everybody, as usual, for joining the program on Freewheeling Friday, and which was a little less freewheeling today because we had so much to get through. But yeah, next poll, we will we'll put those Second Amendment questions back in. A couple others we discussed that didn't make the cut this time that now, of course, are relevant, and we'll continue the approval polls. See if he ticks down or what happens here, but this is definitely a new little landmark for him with us anyway. But not 65%, but definitely a 2-point tick up since the last time. All right, so all the best, folks. We will see you on Monday for What Are the Odds? Don't forget about that. It's going to be a good one. Robert and I got a good one set up for Monday. We got a lot to talk about that we didn't get to talk about last Monday because it wasn't all there yet. All right, so don't forget, follow me on Twitter still, @peoples_pundit. And you can, if you like the videos on YouTube, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel still. We will continue to stream there. If you like the video, then hit the like button. If you don't like it, then hit the dislike button. But if you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that will let you know when we're going to go live. Facebook watchers, hit the like button on People's Pundit Daily. All right? And that'll also, by the way, let you know when we're going to go live. With that, Laura, I think I covered it all. You can follow us at Gitmo Life, gitmo.life, @peoplespundit, _, and @Laura Barris. All right?
Locals.
And locals, I already did that, right? Definitely sign up for the locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com. That will give you the ability to interact and build these surveys with us as we do them. And of course, interact more. You get to have a say in the content of the survey, which you can still go. Even with one of the press releases, probably all have the links in there to go to it. But if you want to contribute to the public polling project, that is bigdatapoll.com/public/polling/project.com. Or just bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. That's it.
Add extra
I'm going to be
slashes,
asking
man. No dashes,
and
no
extra.com for a second there.
You know?
All right. But that's always in the video description. You guys can get it there, and we'll tweet it out, do whatever we're going to do with it. Have a safe and happy weekend, folks. Thanks for watching, sharing, supporting, as always, and caring. All right. See you on Monday.
See you on the flip side.
Hear you on Saturday.
Yeah.
you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette,